First, I just have to comment on what Donald Trump just said. What is wrong with that man? I mean, seriously, the making this about him always saying now more and more bizarre things. This is not a well person who should be the president of the United States, and it is sick the way he reacts to tragedies, and he's got to be called out every single time. I mean, I cannot believe that this is the person running our country right now. But onto your question. I think that when I'm proud of our leader today, that is exactly the right approach. Hakeem Jeffries is right. Listen, one of three things is going to happen. Kristi Noem is either A, going to resign, 2, she is going to get fired by the president in some way because of the pressure, or 3, we're going to.
This just happened, and we need to stop everything to talk about it because the political landscape in Washington has just shifted in a way that we have not seen in decades. We are looking at a moment that goes far beyond the standard daily noise of political fighting. We are witnessing a fundamental rupture in how the executive branch interacts with the judicial system. This is not just a headline. This is a constitutional stress test happening in real time. What we are seeing right now is a collision of two major crises at once. On one side, you have an immediate personnel collapse involving high-level figures like Kristi Noem facing potential impeachment or resignation. On the other side, and this is the far more dangerous story, we have a total reshaping of the federal justice system through the use of executive power. The president has just issued over 1700 acts of clemency in a single year. This is not normal. This is a signal that the rules of the game have been completely rewritten. We need to walk through exactly what is happening, who is involved, and why this threatens the stability of our institutions. We have to begin by addressing the immediate atmosphere in Washington, which is currently thick with tension and confusion. There is a specific focus right now on the president's rhetoric, which has become increasingly erratic. We are seeing a pattern where tragic events are being spun into personal grievances. This is not the behavior of a standard political operator. When you look at the transcripts and hear the way he is speaking, it is clear that he is making every situation about himself, often saying things that are bizarre or disconnected from the reality on the ground. This is raising serious questions about his capacity to govern. It is a harsh assessment, but when you see a leader react to national tragedies with self-centered outbursts, it signals that we are dealing with a volatile situation at the top of the executive branch. At the same time, we have a very specific crisis unfolding with Kristi Noem. This situation has reached a boiling point. Based on the internal discussions happening right now, there are really only 3 ways this ends. The first option is that she resigns immediately to save face. The second option is that she gets fired by the president because the political pressure becomes too much to handle. The third option, and this is being discussed seriously in the halls of Congress, is impeachment. We are looking at a scenario where she faces a formal inquiry. This is not just talk. We are hearing that 3 major committees, Oversight, Judiciary, and Homeland Security, are preparing to launch investigations. The political math here is brutal for the Republicans. You have Republican members of Congress who are sitting in districts that were won by Kamala Harris or are leaning heavily Democratic. These members are fighting for their political lives. They need independent voters to survive re-election.
Better off just resigning today because we are going to launch an impeachment inquiry and an investigation amongst 3 major committees within the Congress. Certainly oversight will have a role. Judiciary is going to have a significant role, as will Homeland Security. And so there is going to be a strong effort. There are, as you know, Republicans that their districts are won by Kamala Harris. They are in districts that are essentially Democrat or Democrat-leaning districts. And certainly in this election, they're going to need independents and Democrats to try to scrape their way to re-election. So I think there is a real possibility.
They cannot afford to be dragged down by a scandal involving Noem. Because of this, there is a very real possibility that these Republicans will join the effort to remove her. The pressure is mounting, and the consensus is that she would be better off stepping down today rather than dragging the party through a long public investigation. But while everyone is focused on that drama, we need to pivot to what is actually happening with the president's use of power, because that is the story that will change the country. There are a lot of wild conspiracy theories floating around the internet right now. You might have heard rumors that Trump's allies are fleeing the country, or that his inner circle is collapsing because of some dark secret. I need to be very clear with you, that is not true. Those rumors are false. The reality is much more interesting and much more significant. The inner circle is not breaking apart, it is being fortified through a massive, unprecedented use of the pardon power. We are talking about over 1700 clemencies issued in the first year back in office. I want you to sit with that number for a moment. 1700. This is not a president correcting a few miscarriages of justice. This is a wholesale reshaping of the federal criminal justice system. This is an industrial scale operation. The scale of this activity tells us that something fundamental has changed in how this administration views its own power. This is not business as usual. This is a deliberate strategy to override the judicial branch. When we look at the specific names on this list, a very clear pattern emerges. This is not random. It is a system of rewards. Let's look at the case of Adriana and Andres Camberos. These individuals were convicted of grocery fraud. They were running schemes that hurt real people. Here is the incredible part. They had already received clemency from Trump once before. Then in 2024, they were convicted again. And what happened, the president stepped in and wiped away that conviction too. It is as if the legal system does not apply to them. Their record was erased like it never happened. This is not how justice usually works. Usually a conviction stands unless there is new evidence. Here, the only new evidence was that the president decided they should not be punished. Then you have the case of Taryn Peaser. This involves securities fraud. This case was not brought by some rogue prosecutor. It was prosecuted by Trump's own Department of Justice. His own appointees brought the charges. His own prosecutors argued the case. A jury convicted him. And then the president simply overruled his own Justice Department and issued a pardon. He is effectively saying that he does not recognize the legitimacy of the work done by his own government. He wiped the entire case away. We also need to talk about Wanda Vazquez. She faced bribery charges out of Puerto Rico. But she has a very important asset. She is politically aligned with the Trump movement. She has connections. And because of those connections, she did not get a reduced sentence. She got a full pardon. She did not have to spend years in court clearing her name. She simply had the right friends. The pattern continues with Julio Herrera Velutini. He is a banker who was caught up in corruption charges. But look at his legal team. His lawyer is Chris Keese. Chris Keese is deeply embedded in the president's legal defense team. He is an insider, and guess what happened to the client of the insider? He received clemency. Then there is David Levy, who was facing conspiracy charges. He also received clemency. When you line these cases up, the common thread is undeniable. These are not random acts of mercy. These are people with specific connections to the Trump network, people who have lawyers, who are plugged into the administration, or people who have shown political loyalty. The Democrats are obviously furious about this. You have figures like Governor Newsom putting out fraud alert lists. You have commentators on television screaming that the rule of law is being destroyed and that this is a get-out-of-jail-free card for the rich. And they are not wrong about the optics. The wealthy and the connected are walking free while regular people go to prison. But here is the twist that makes this so important to understand. The president's base does not care. In fact, they love it. While the media is reporting this as a scandal, Trump's supporters see it as a victory. They believe the system is rigged. They believe the Department of Justice has been weaponized against them. So when they see the president using his power to undo convictions, they view it as him fighting back against a corrupt deep state. They see him protecting his people from what they consider to be unfair persecution. This is why the Republican Party is not revolting. There is no internal collapse. The base sees this as a promise kept. They see a leader who is finally strong enough to override the courts and protect his allies. This is the reality of power in Washington right now. It is not about rumors of people fleeing. It is about a consolidation of authority where the president uses the pardon power to signal that if you are with him, you are safe. If you are loyal, the laws might not apply to you in the same way they apply to everyone else. The real news is not that the administration's falling apart. The real news is that it is building a parallel system of justice that rewards loyalty above everything else. This is shaping up to be the defining battle of the upcoming midterms, and it changes the calculation for everyone in the political arena. We need to step back and analyze why these specific events matter so much to the structure of the American government. When we talk about 1700 pardons, we are not just talking about a statistic. We are talking about the erosion of the separation of powers. In the American system, the judiciary is supposed to be independent. It is supposed to be the place where facts are weighed and penalties are assigned without political interference. But the pardon power is the one area where the president has total unchecked authority. It is the one place where he acts like a king. Historically, presidents have used this power very sparingly because they understood that using it too much would break the public's trust in the law. To understand the scale of this, we have to look at history. George W. Bush issued about 140 pardons over 8 years. Barack Obama issued just under 2,000 over 8 years, and most of those were for low-level drug offenses to address systemic inequality. Donald Trump has dropped 1/700 inches a single year. The velocity is completely different. This is a systematic use of the power to rewrite legal outcomes. It turns the pardon from a tool of mercy into a tool of political management. This brings us to the concept of patronage. In many other countries and in certain times in history, like the 19th century political machines in New York or Chicago, power worked through patronage. The leader would use the resources of the state to reward his friends and punish his enemies. If you were loyal to the boss, you got a job, you got protection, and you got immunity. If you were outside the circle, you faced the cold reality of the law. What we are witnessing with these clemencies is the return of a high-level patronage system to the federal government. The message being sent to every lobbyist, every donor, and every politician is that the best legal defense is not a good lawyer. It is a good relationship with the president. This creates a profound problem for the concept of the rule of law. The rule of law depends on the idea that the rules are the same for everyone. If you commit fraud, you go to jail. It should not matter if you know Chris Keese. It should not matter if you donated to the campaign. But the cases of Pizer and Velutini suggest that those things matter more than the evidence. When the president pardons someone who was prosecuted by his own Justice Department, he is effectively saying that his personal judgment overrides the entire legal apparatus of the United States. He is saying, I am the law. There is also a psychological component here that is very powerful. By doing this so openly, the administration is stripping away the fear of consequences for its allies. Usually people in a president's inner circle are terrified of breaking the law because they know the spotlight is on them. But if they know that a pardon is waiting for them on the other side, that fear evaporates. It changes the incentive structure. It encourages people to take risks, to push boundaries, and to break rules because they have a safety net. This is dangerous because it removes the guardrails that keep a government functioning honestly. We also have to look at the political genius, and I use that word neutrally, of how this is being sold. The administration has successfully flipped the narrative. For decades, corruption was defined as using public office for private gain. But the president has convinced his base that the system itself is corrupt. Therefore, bypassing the system is not corruption, it is justice. This is why the backlash that Democrats are expecting is not happening. Democrats look at the Camberos case and see fraud. Trump supporters look at it and see a family that was targeted by an overzealous state. These are two completely different realities living side by side. This is structurally similar to what we see in illiberal democracies around the world. In places where democratic institutions are sliding backward, the leader often captures the judiciary or neutralizes it. We are seeing a version of that here. The president cannot fire every judge, but he can nullify their rulings. It renders the courts less relevant. If a judge spends 6 months presiding over a trial and the jury deliberates for a week, and the result is erased in 5 minutes by a signature, the court loses its power. That is the institutional crisis we are facing. It is a slow-moving crisis, but it is dismantling the checks and balances that hold the republic together. Now we need to look at the consequences, both in the short term and the long term. In the short term, over the next few months leading into the midterms, this is going to be the primary weapon for the Democratic Party. You can expect to see ads running in every swing district that contrast these pardons with the struggles of regular Americans. The narrative will be simple. He pardoned a millionaire banker who committed fraud, but he did nothing to help you with your prices or your health care. The Democrats will try to paint the Republican Party as the party of elite lawlessness. They will try to make the election a referendum on the two-tier justice system. However, the countermove from the Republicans is already visible. They are going to lean heavily into the border and crime. They will argue that while they are pardoning victims of the deep state, they are the only ones tough on actual violent criminals and illegal immigration. They will try to muddy the waters so that the public sees the pardons not as corruption, but as a necessary correction to a broken system. This is going to be a brutal, ugly political fight where both sides accuse the other of destroying the law. Long term, the consequences are much more severe. We are looking at the normalization of this behavior. Once a precedent is set in American politics, it is almost never reversed. Future presidents from both parties will look at this moment and realize that the political cost of mass pardons is lower than they thought. We could see a future where every transition of power involves thousands of pardons for political allies. It turns the justice system into a partisan weapon where your conviction only lasts as long as your opponents hold the White House. We also have to consider the impact on the Department of Justice. If you are a federal prosecutor right now working on a complex financial fraud case involving a politically connected person, you have to be asking yourself if it is even worth it. Why spend years building a case if it is just going to be wiped away? This leads to a demoralized civil service and a brain drain. The best lawyers will leave the government, and the institutions that investigate corruption will become weaker and less effective. Finally, we have to look at what this does to the stability of the country. A society functions because people believe that if they follow the rules, they will be treated fairly. When that belief disappears, when people see that the rich and connected play by a different set of rules, social trust collapses. We are already a low-trust society. This accelerates that decline. It makes people cynical. It makes them believe that everything is rigged. And when people believe everything is rigged, they stop believing in democracy altogether. That is the dark path we are walking down right now. This isn't just about a few guys getting out of jail. It is about the slow disintegration of the idea that no man is above the law.